This is Rugby Unity. I am David Pembroke, and welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with Rahul Bose, the president of Rugby India. Last week, we took a look at the foundations of Indian rugby, exploring the grassroots-focused approach and their ambitions to make the 2032 Brisbane Olympic Games. Rahul takes us inside the Rugby Premier League, the Indian Rugby Premier League, revealing the process of turning a 7-year idea into reality and how he convinced broadcasters to back a sport most Indians have never seen on TV. We'll take a look at what comes next for Indian rugby, from a deeper pool of Indian players to the prospect of a women's competition. It's a great case study in how you build a new professional rugby competition in one of the biggest markets in the world. But now, let's get back to the conversation with the president of Rugby India, Rahul Bose. So, take me to and give me the long version of the Rugby Premier League story. When did you first, or was it your idea? Was it somebody else's idea? Was it a group of you sitting around a table? Tell me the story and tell it to me in detail about the Rugby Premier League. It's from idea to execution to now results and evaluation. And I do apologise for being a little bit bold to ask you that question. But it's the mission of this podcast is pretty simple. It's all about how do we help secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world.
Of course.
And
thank you.
This is a great story. And if you do have time to share with us, I know the audience would love to know all about it. So
I'm happy to do that, David. I'm happy to do that, not because it's all about how great we are. I think it's more about how something like this, which is the first time I think in rugby history, and this is not about beating your chest. It's just, how did something like this, first of all, how was it thought of? And how the hell did we pull it off? And now that the numbers are coming in, and now that we know, the sponsorships and the actual commercial, the financial implications of having a league like this are all the figures are with us. And we've spoken to all the team owners, and we're making plans for next year, which are, of course, contain a lot of plans for the women also. Anyway, so let me start from the very beginning so that your viewer will be able to follow the thread of it, and then decide where to pick it up when they're bored and where to fast forward to. 7 years ago, I thought of this. And I said, let's just look at how leagues are being run successfully and what makes them successful and what outcomes of these leagues are we attracted to. Walking around this country, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that as a federation, as a sport, for this sport to take off, in the normal scheme of things would take about... Indian cricket started in 1932. There were 6 nations playing, and they won the first World Cup in 1983. They won their first Test series, I do believe it was against England and the West Indies in 1971. So for a tiny sport like that, at the time, with 10 countries playing it, you had your first Test victory 40 years after you started playing, and your first World Cup victory 50 years after you started playing. So how long would it take for cricket, which has 120 nations playing? I mean, how long would it take for rugby, for us to ascend to the top 10% of rugby, the top 12 nations out of 120? It would take 100 years, maybe 150 years. So the chances of me living that long are next to zero. The chances of anybody even letting me live 1/10 that long, given what a pain in the ass I am, is even less than zero. So I said, okay, we're going to have to do something about this quickly. And the reason I used the silver bullet metaphor, and I also used in other interviews, I've talked about Harrison Ford getting into the spaceship in Star Wars and pressing the Mac button or whatever it was. And, the ship is going and there are these stars passing by slowly. And when he presses that magic Mac or light button or whatever it was, and then these stars become these lines as the spaceship shoots exponentially in speed into space. I said, what is that can make us do that? So I examined these leagues and I said, the outcome that I am most interested in looking at these leagues is what it does to the Indian ecosystem. And in how much time does it do that? A really, really well-run league is a league that captures the imagination of the viewers, captures the imagination of the cities that have teams in them, the spectators, obviously the sponsors, and the players. And what does it do? It automatically pumps in money into the sport. A very simple example, after the Rugby Premier League, the waiting time for any rugby official anywhere in the country outside a sponsor's office or a government office looking for jobs or looking for funds has been reduced by 90%. Because they've seen it. Now they know it. And you couldn't blame them earlier for saying, rugby, whatever, ask him to wait, ask her to wait. So that's a very, very simple, superficial example of what having a league does to a sport. Where else does the money come from? Of course, it comes from sponsors. Where else does the money come from? It comes from team owners who say, hang on, we've just finished the league. We have 11 months to go for the next one. This is going to go to 100 countries on RugbyPass TV. This is going to go to just the television footprint is going to increase to 14 countries next year. I want to win the damn thing. And yes, we can get great foreign players in the auction next year, but we're going to have to rely on a bank of Indian players. So where are the Indian players? They're already asking us as a federation, give us more Indian players. We're like, look, we have a bank of the 30 top players and we have a second bank of the next 30, but you're free to find anybody from anywhere. You come for our national tournament in April, where you will see 774 players playing. And choose. You create your bank from there, and we will have a retention policy that every team that takes 20, 25 Indian players into their ecosystem will have the option of retaining 5 of them, let's just say. So Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Delhi, Bhubaneswar will have camps, maybe 3 camps in a year. Maybe Paco will come down, he was the head coach of the Hyderabad Heroes, for 1 camp. Maybe the assistant coach takes the other 2 camps. But what you create is a mini infrastructure in these 6 cities where you have coach, ground, facilities, stay, food, etc., 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 which this federation doesn't pay a cent for, and which is being spread in cities where earlier we didn't have camps, we didn't have this kind of a what should I say, ecosystem, a 360-degree high-performance kind of ecosystem for your scouts, for your scouted players. So that's the second spin-off. And the third is, look at the amount of kids tomorrow, David, who will see the logo of one of these rugby teams and say, I want to play this sport. Whether you're in a rural area or whether you're in one of these cities, it's on television. It's on OTT. So that flag flying is not the flag flying of some cement manufacturer. It's a flag flying of hope for a kid who wants to play rugby. And so that becomes, sorry, please.
Well, it's very powerful, that combination. But before we talk about the kids and obviously watching it and getting involved and coming to know the players and seeing the Indian players and the overseas players and being part of it, just going back to that motivation around the owners. Now, they want to win, but do they want to win for pride for their city? Do they want to win for why do they want to win beyond the pure motivation of winning a contest? Is there money that they can win, or is there prestige that they can win, or what motivates the owner before we get to motivating the people of India?
Money. And these are owners who have been successful in different fields. 3 of them are billionaires. They're not used to coming second.
Right. Okay. Good. I like that.
You put 6 kids You put 6 kids in a garden and say, run as fast as you want, and they'll run. But you put 6 kids with 6 lines drawn for each lane and a finish line at the end, and suddenly they just become assassins. What is it in our human DNA that when you suddenly infuse a finish line, that everybody gets competitive? That's primal. And you understand that, and I understand that. But these are team owners who, if not billionaires, make hundreds of millions. They're not used to coming second at anything. Why would they get into something? Yes, they do want to make money. I can tell you this. None of them want to lose money. None of them want to, because for them, money is very important in as much as that you respect the value and you don't unnecessarily throw it away. So yes, they're willing to look at year 1, year 2, year 3. Everybody knows the league will start making money for its franchise owners only after year 4. They get it. So they say, fine, this is a hit we're taking for 4 years, and then it'll even out later on. I can bet if you ask any of our team owners, if they come out 50-50, even Stevens after 10 years, they'll say what was great was winning, the thrill of playing with the best players in the world, having these coaches, being in front of India, our patriotism for our city and for our country, all of that will play definitely a big part. But Chennai doesn't have anybody who's from India. It's a bunch of investors, and now it is one investor, who now is a non-resident Indian who has a deep love for his motherland, or whatever, for the country. And so he wants to give back to the country, and it thrills him beyond anything to actually and they won this year. So it thrills him to have done something for this country that had done so much for him in the past. So whatever your drivers, I can say for sure, financially, nobody wants to sink money into a hole that doesn't seem to be giving anything back. Equally, and I'll tell you from this year, and I'll get to this year and how we came to it very quickly. Everyone I'll give you one team owner's example. They said, who's going to watch this sport? We've got teams in 3 other leagues. And frankly, sponsors are not very interested. Everybody's saying, what is rugby? So we're thinking maybe we've made the wrong decision. So I said, hang on. It's a little bit too late for you to drop out of this year. And you've signed on for 10 years. But are you saying that you're having second thoughts about your long-term engagement? They said, yes. So I said, okay, why don't we do this? No problem. Zero pressure. Finish the year. Tell us what you want so we can react and we can because we have 3 other team owners waiting in the wings. In fact, I said, you have one team owner who wants your city. They finished the tournament. I didn't even refer to this conversation we had, went back to them with the analysis, the television numbers, the numbers. And this guy turns around and says, forget about the numbers. It was a fantastic show. So I said, okay, are you in? Are you out? So he looked at me and said, listen, I was in the first year because you have something irrepressible about convincing people. But I've seen it. You pulled it off. We're in.
So how hard was it? At what year? Like from 7 years prior, how hard was it for you to convince the owners to take on the team? And by what stage in that 7-year genesis of the idea did you land on this is what the Rugby Premier League is going to look like?
In the last 2 years.
Okay. So it all came together in the last 2 years. Right.
For 5 years, I was exploring.
Right.
I met with people who run practically every league in this country, success or fail. Tennis league, failed. Soccer league, doing well sometimes, not doing well sometimes. Kabaddi league, success. Kho-Kho league, new, enthusiastic. Slapped on the wrist many times by different team owners, league owners for our financial models that were unrealistic. Slapped on the wrist, the TV guys. There are 3 horses in town. Sony, Jio, and Star. This was the 3 horses. These were the 3 horses in town till 2 years ago. 2 of the horses, I don't want to use the word mated, but whatever it is, Jio and Star are together, and Sony remains the other horse. I have met with all 3 horses at least 2 times in the last 7 years. And all of them had been very, very inclusive. Listen, Rahul, if you want to make this is the way to do it. These are the lessons we are learning from X sport. This league has failed because of Y, etc., etc. And in all those discussions, don't forget, I'm talking to team owners, I'm talking to league owners, and I'm talking to television. And after all those discussions, I arrive at something which maybe you would have known before I did all of this, maybe you wouldn't. Number one, leagues do not run for individual sports. Leagues have to run on team sport because the essence of a league is tribalism, fan loyalty, building franchises, building a cult, building a culture. Okay, ticked, boxes ticked. Any league that has a sport in it that is not comparable to anything I can get on that sport on any other channel anywhere in the world, I'm not going to watch. It has to be the world's best. Okay, fine. So we have to get the best players in the world. Third, whichever country that league is located in, you better have a terrific pull for those countries' people to come in and get behind the sport. Fine. So you need an Indian component for sure. I mean, I'm just stating the obvious. That's done. 3. 4. Television said, do not make this anything over an hour, hour and a half of viewing. Even T20 cricket today, David. Nobody watches the 3 hours. They watch the first 5 overs, they watch the last 5 overs, and in between they might watch Virat Kohli or somebody who's your favorite, if he or she comes into play. So this is from television, broadcaster. They're like, guys, 60 to 90 minutes. Okay, fine. So we have all of this in place. We say we need the best players in the world. We need the best Indian players. We need to have it short and snappy. I created the 4x4 format, which was, let's not have 7 into 2 halves of 7 minutes. Let's do 4 minutes of 4 quarters so we can get more commercial time in. But what transpired was, and now we talk to all the coaches, is 4 minutes of rugby leads to very intense rugby because there's a 2-minute break coming up and you have 7 substitutes. So it led to more intense engagement on the field and a freedom in the player saying that I'll just give the next 4 a skip. I'll come back in quarter 3. I'll have 8 minutes of rugby. And finally, the format itself, you play 10 minutes a day, David. Even if you play the whole game, what are you playing? Maximum, you're playing 16 minutes with breaks in between. So the adjustment that the players had to make was only that this is a 15-day tournament versus 3 days of mad rugby where we play 12 games. Fine, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's go back. So the research has been done, and now we know exactly what to put in place in terms of the game. Now we have to get to sponsors and we have to get to team owners. Team owners. It rested on finances. It did not rest on the game because nobody knew the game. They could see it was exciting. They could see it was kabaddi plus 100-meter race. But they knew that they were starting from scratch. You had to have a lot of courage to say yes to the sport. So what we did was we created the most reasonable financial model of any league anywhere in the country in our history. And we also built in a minimum guarantee of money that we from the Central League would give them whether we raise the money or not at the end of the year. That minimum guarantee was sizable, but not everything that they would have spent on the year. But it also was a measure of the confidence we had in the league. They're like, wow, these guys are going to give us this money back. They're not screwing around here. That was one. And 2, it was a great gesture of trust that we said, we are in this. If you think you're in this, we are in this too. If we don't raise the money, we're going to give you the money back. So there was that. So financially, if I was a billionaire or I made hundreds of millions, I turned and said, what's the play? The play is $200,000. I mean, can do. What's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to lose $1 million in 5 years. I'm going to get blah, 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 intangibles. Yeah, it's a punt. Let's go for it. I mean, it's peanuts compared to any other league. The second thing we did when we were pitching to team owners was, and this was driven by me, I said, let's not bullshit them at all with these figures and this is what's going to happen and this sponsor is going to come on board. I said, these guys are billionaires. They've made hundreds of millions at the very least. They've heard the hype over and over again. Let's just say it exactly as it's going to happen. And what that did, David, was that they respected us. A couple of them said not for us. I think we must have gone to overall about 15 people in the Indian ecosystem. 5 said no. 2 said next year. And it's going to be 5 years from now. And 6 said yes. 7 said yes. And then we had to tell one person that it's only a 6-city tournament. But they respected the fact that at no point of time were we ever displaying any nervousness in being exaggerating or being duplicitous or none of that. So there was a sense of, guys, if you're in this, just get in and be with us. Otherwise, that's okay. Don't put us under the cosh, a moral pressure through the entire tournament to live up to your expectations. This is what we're promising. Anything will be better than this. It's not going to be worse than this. And as it so turned out, we had 17 sponsors coming in. And we've shared all the financials with all the team owners. And we have been the first league in India's history to achieve its targets in the first year. The targets were not massive. They were modest, but we achieved it for a sport that nobody's seen before in this country, for a sport that nobody sponsored before in this country, for a sport that everybody who walked into that stadium had no clue what they were watching, apart from 50 dedicated rugby diehards. It was extraordinary. I mean, the French, Christophe Wright, who's in the French sevens and high performance system, and now he's with the women. Christophe came down. He'd been with the French rugby team, men's rugby team that won the Olympics. And the French were the only team, a federation that didn't send any players because they had a domestic tournament going on at the time. Fine. There was New Zealand, South Africa, Fiji, Argentina, Spain, all of them sent players. He said, I've come to see if this league is good enough for the French players. I don't suppose he meant it that way. I was like, sure, you see whatever you want. I took him to the broadcasting nerve center where everything is done. The actual broadcast is being done from there. Commentary boxes, the players' dressing rooms, the team hotel, the food, everything. We showed him everything. And he was sitting there and he said, we spend about 75,000 euros on our broadcast. How much do you spend? And we said, we spend 310,000 euros. He said, really? We have 7 cameras. I said, we have 13 HD cameras. And so he was watching the game at the stadium and he put on his phone and he began to watch on his phone. And these were the best pictures you'll see of rugby sevens in terms of quality. Of course, we had World Rugby commentators and all of that. But he was looking at the pictures and I could see that he was well impressed because it was great coverage. And I remember when we had sundry discussions with our producer and director of the entire television program, because television, it's a television product, David. Finally, it's a television product. It has to sing on television and OTT, if you know what I mean. I remember going to the TV guys and saying, look, we don't need those drone shots. And you don't need to show me the patterns of this arrow and then this guy came here and this spotlight on this player, how he moved. That's 15's rugby. 7's rugby is low on, these master plans and these great strategies. It's about execution of stuff that everybody knows. And it's about last minute inspiration. So I said, take a leaf out of cinema and give me drama. Get close to the action. Let's see blood, let's see sweat, let's see tears, let's see the action. Let's see contact. Let's see effort. Let's see heroism. I'm not saying that we have to dumb this down. You have the best commentators in the world, giving you narrating the story. But make it dramatic because 7's rugby is all about that. It should be about that. Glory. And that's what we did. And in fact, it rained on a few days And I was like, oh God. And the broadcasters were like, no, in super slow motion, rain is amazing to watch on television. And then we had women coming in and saying, the more it rains, the more we see the men's bodies. And I was like, guys, where are we going with this? This was never in the master plan. This was not meant to be that kind of. So it was like, come for the thighs, stay for the tries. It was it was becoming something like that with our, minuscule but very loyal, ferocious female population that grew over the tournament. So getting back to the team owners, I think this is what really worked for them. And then they actually saw in the auction, the way we conducted the auction. We had the best auctioneer in the country who does the auctions for the IPL. We had it at Geo Gardens, which is the most attractive complex in the country. So they knew that these guys are spending money. These guys are not taking any prisoners when it comes to quality. So automatically what happens is, if you're a successful business person, you like people who are doing things without any compromise. That's the way to actually get people on board, do things excellently, and they see you shedding your blood, and then they will also, walk the extra mile with you. And the grass had to be 22 millimeters every single day. And I ended my closing ceremony speech. I started by saying 22 millimeters is what's made this tournament. That's how we go. That's who we are. What does a great rugby player want anywhere in the world? Fantastic ground, very, very good food, and international place to stay. And they should feel super safe and super looked after. Everything else is irrelevant. Yeah, the money they know, etc., etc. And we micromanaged to a point where I had spoken to the head of customs and immigration at Mumbai airport, and they had the name of every foreign player coming in from anywhere in the world on any flight. And when the person would touch the immigration desk, they would be saying, Mr. Pembroke, good to see you here. Welcome to the Rugby Premier League. Now, can you imagine?
Outstanding.
What that does to a player?
But it is that attention to detail in any walk of life that really separates effective and ineffective. So in your mind's eye, and you obviously had your forecasts, it was all sitting there. When you got to finish that speech, and before you closed your eyes that night, as you put your head on the pillow after what would have been an incredibly exhausting 15 days, what did you feel? What did you think? How do you distill that moment?
Gratitude. Most overwhelming tide of gratitude. What couldn't have gone wrong? Everything. Weather, player's injury, screwed up broadcast, lights could have gone off, bad refereeing, and so when the closing ceremony got over with all those lit candles and confetti and all of that, and everybody left and they put the stadium lights off. All these lights went off and there was just working lights. They were dismantling the stage and there was nobody around. And I walked back to the center of the field and I took a 360 degree, a completely innocuous video. I mean, who would? Semi-darkness, boring stadium with some bored carpenters desultorily dismantling a podium. And I remember thinking to myself, feeling to myself the greatest gratitude. Yeah. And it started with a video that I showed all the players about Indian rugby and my visits across tribal areas, mountainous areas, slums, I shouldn't use the word, economically depressed neighborhoods of this country, meeting players. One of those players' fathers now passed away. He used to pull a push cart. And I started the first evening when I got everybody together, I said, this is why you're here. Of course you're here for the rugby, but this is why you're here. This is why we are here. So when I finished the whole tournament and I was standing on that field, it's the beginning of something, David.
Yeah.
And it was being seen by the rich and the famous. People from the Indian Hindi film industry were there, what you guys call Bollywood. There were captains of industry. There were politicians. This was going to, our TV numbers show phenomenal traction in the big towns, in the big cities, the Mumbais and the Delhis and the Hyderabad's and the Bangalores of India. But it's being played by a different demographic. This boy from the Delhi slums, he dummies Rosko and scores a try. What a moment. And it's those moments that will go into Indian rugby law in the future.
Of course.
And this is something that's not going to be interesting to most of your viewers because it's a very Indian story, but it will resonate. Culturally, it'll resonate as to what sport can do.
We're not talking rugby, we're building it. Rugby Unity.
To me, I think it's one of the great stories of the year, of this year, what you've been able to achieve with the Rugby Premier League. I think it's. I was fascinated all the way through from the moment of getting that approval from World Rugby to say, yep, the players are going to be able to go. There's the 15-day window. And I'm intrigued, and it doesn't surprise me, you having told the story as we've discussed, that the way that you go about things is clearly very strategic, very tactical, attention to detail, and it doesn't surprise me at all that it's been a great success, and you've now set the foundation, or you've set the table for future success. And it sounds now like you've got everybody heading in that right direction. And so, where to from here for next year? What does year 2 look like, and what does year 3, year 4, year 5? Have you got a clear view as to how you'll continue to develop the Premier League?
Yes. Year 2, fundamental changes in terms of player composition per side has to happen, because you had a draft last time. None of the team owners knew any of the players. So you put 30 people in front of them and said, choose 6 each or 5 each. You had something called bridge players from bridge nations. All the coaches said, we don't need bridge players. Your Indian players can step up. It's looking good. But there will be an auction. Year 2, we want to give team owners the freedom to people their teams with, because now they have their coaches. There's Paco with Hyderabad. There's DJ. Paco is with Bangalore. DJ is with Hyderabad. Ben is with Chennai. You've got all these guys. Tomorrow, Ben Gollings will say, why don't we get these 3 guys into the auction? They're fantastic players, and, they come from Samoa, and let's get them into the auction. So that kind of freedom. So that's one big change. Second is, I think all the coaches, all the players want to come back. My phone is full of messages from Manu and from all these guys. They want to come.
I bet.
Which is great. What we are going to do is we're going to have a 1-day break in the middle of the tournament just for everybody to chill out and have a beer. And we would very much like a deeper pool of substitutes in terms of injuries. So that's something also we've learned. With the team owners, we are now working very solidly on creating advertising opportunities, sponsorship opportunities for each team through a central league sponsorship. Like maybe we can get an apparel manufacturer to do the apparel for everybody and take that cost off their hands. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So definitely going to be building a deeper relationship with our team owners. Team owners love the fact that we're going to give them freedom to people their teams. They can even change their coaches if you want. Now our hands are off,
yes.
David. As long as you go with 6 players or whatever, 6, 7, you can do what you want. Even the Indian auction, you might want players who we haven't put into the auction pool earlier. All of that freedom will be given. With sponsors and with the broadcaster, we are creating our marketing campaign is going to start. If it started 2 months prior to the RPL last time, it's going to start 6 months prior.
Right.
We're going to, we're going to be doing a lot of rugby. Don't forget, we'll have footage from this year to actually show, as opposed to random World Rugby footage last time that we used. The anthem was very popular across the country. Rug Rug Mein Rugby, which means rugby in your veins. That's what it means in Hindi. They love the anthem. So that was a big plus. So we'll be doing things around the anthem. And we're looking at community rugby initiatives in these 6 cities that will be co-funded and organized by the Central League in each city. So we start to create interest around rugby way before the tournament. And as I said, we're looking very seriously at slotting in a women's Rugby Premier League into the same 15 days, because we have time on television, which we didn't use. We have a 2.5 hour slot every day, which we had other footage coming in. But now if we have games, the women's games. So I'm really excited about that personally. Really, really excited about that. The numbers are very difficult numbers to justify, because sponsorships are, my God, they're exponentially lower for women's rugby right now than it is for men's rugby in India, and also for women's sport in general. But that ecosystem is changing. But I mean, it'll be amazing. It will be amazing rugby. Forget about anything else. And the amount of international women rugby players who've been messaging me and saying, "Listen, you just simply have to do it this year," is something that I'm going to move heaven and earth to make this happen. We're going to run the figures. We're going to run the numbers by the teams next week as we speak, starting from the 17th. Keep your fingers crossed, David. Keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll get, the right of first refusal goes to the first 6 teams, of course, and to see how they respond to it. What else? I think what we need to do in the Indian context is build more stories. And the story will now come out of how some of our Indian boys played in the last RPL. That's the story that's going to, that's with the team, whether it's, Javed with the Hyderabad Heroes, or whether it was Mohit with his team, or Akash with his Mumbai Dreamers. We got to build those stories and create very real, very vibrant stories from the previous year. Now we don't need to just talk in the air. Now there's something to actually build from. Our broadcasters are solidly behind us. I remember the top guy in the broadcasting, amongst our broadcasters. He came and spent 3 hours watching one whole evening of rugby. He was dropping into the car park, and he said, "You've done it." When he said "you," he meant all of us. He said, "You've done it." He said, "You guys have done it. Now you just have to move from strength to strength." But the sport is gripping, engaging. The television footage is fantastic. We're getting, by the way, David, I have feedback from all over the world from people who watch the footage. Even if they didn't watch entire games, they watched what's on Instagram, on our handles. So he said, "You've done it. You just have to now build on it." So it's easy to say bigger, better, bolder. But for me, it's going to be much more fun in terms of the engagement that we're going to create with fans. The rugby was always good. It's going to continue to be stellar. One thing that I want to do with the players is get them into the frame of mind that you're going to be here for 15 days. Just chill out. It's the 1 game a day. See the city, enjoy yourself, train hard, play. See the city, enjoy yourself, have a night out, play. Don't expect to be switched on the whole day for those 10 minutes. So even coaches need to get their heads around how to pace the various players, because I could sense that they were not ready for 15 days of a tournament. Who is, if you're a sevens player? Nobody is. So it's just a different rhythm. That's all.
Well, it sounds like you've got everything set for it to go further and for it to become a mainstay for global rugby, because I think this is an opportunity really, to put the focus on India for those 15 days. And so, programs like ours, other programs, the Rugby Pass is there. There's the opportunity to engage with it, but to talk about it and to tell, as you say, those great stories of the Indian players, because again, it will help to secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world. And particularly if we can do and can continue to support the growth of the game in India, well, it's got to be a great thing. So as a final question, what what can people who are listening to this now, who are, rugby fans from around the world, who are, vitally involved in our values-based sport, who are committed to its future prosperity, what can individuals do to make a contribution to Indian rugby and to help it to thrive and to succeed?
First, come to India.
Yeah.
But if you can't, and not everybody can, come to India for those 15 days. But no, David, if you guys put us on the show during the tournament, if everybody does that, social media will go through the roof. You do a story with one of the Indian boys talking to one of the Argentinian boys on the same team. You do a story of an Indian girl and an Indian boy. You go to somebody's village. We're happy to provide you the footage of the parents watching on television as their kids playing. You know what I'm saying? You talk about, you get the 3 best players in the world standing next to each other and saying, we're in India and we had a fantastic time last year. Whatever those angles might be, that's one thing. Second is, I find so many people talking to us and saying, after the 15 days, what can we do for Indian rugby? Well, so many things. Fund a camp. Just fund one camp. For any of our 6 teams, I told you that it literally costs $20,000. Just fund a camp. This camp of 30 days for your under 18 girls is on me. It's called the David Pembroke camp for India. Do that. Or less. Anything is welcome. But whatever people will do has to finally, and I'm extremely intolerant of random acts of kindness. It has to have some intent, and the outcome should match the intent. Otherwise, what's the point? So I do believe that as far as the Rugby Premier League is concerned, support it, watch it, talk about it, and by all means constructively suggest, like our coaches have, like our team owners have, they're not happy with the substitution rule, the referees could be better. Absolutely. Point taken. It's going to be, if you have the best players in the world, why don't you have the best referees in the world, Rahul? Good question. We're going to get it done next year. Stuff like that. So, I think literally talk about it. It's not about the money and about how many more eyeballs we want. It's about getting people to engage and to say, listen, I'm a discerning rugby reviewer. I love my rugby, so don't mess with the rugby. I'm allowing you your 4 minutes of 4 quarters. You haven't messed with the game in any other way. But make sure I see kick-ass rugby. And yes, it will be a thrill for me to see the best player from Argentina play alongside the best player from New Zealand, play alongside the best player from Fiji. I haven't ever seen that before. It's going to be fantastic. But do not compromise on the rugby, and that is something we never will. It's out of the question. This is not going to be circus or anything. It's going to be terrific rugby, where the teams are going to be really, really giving their all on the field. And you saw that. Nobody was nobody was walking in the park in those 15 days. They were really out there to put in their best. And so that culture is not going to go. And I know that all the international players who come here, they're paid well. I get that. It's in the off season. I get that also. But all the international players who come here also have something that is so beautiful about the sport, is that they know that what they're doing also has a greater cause. So it's not that they're doing this out of pity, but it helps to know that I'm actually, at the end of the day, they used to run into the stands, and we had school kids. You'll see pictures of, Manu and Rosko and all these guys in the stands sitting, with audiences who don't know them. They don't know who these guys are. They don't know they're talking to, the best players in the world or a legend who's coming out of South Africa or New Zealand. But the player is giving this because it's like, this is what we're here for. This is fantastic. We are shedding our blood. And I say you can be both. You can have world-class rugby and you can have a massive heart. Why can't the two coexist? The greatest people in the world have always been that. They've been world-class at what they do, and they have hearts the size of Manhattan.
Well, Rahul Bose, congratulations on the success of the Rugby Premier League, and congratulations for your leadership of rugby in India to understand a little bit better, as the audience now does, about just exactly how Indian rugby is constructed, about how it's administered, about how it's supported, about how it is governed. We all now learn and know a whole lot more than perhaps we did at the start of this intriguing conversation. And as to that particular tournament, I can only wish you all the very best for great success, and understand that Rugby Unity will be right in the corner of the Premier League next year, and we will be doing everything we can to promote it as best as we possibly can. Now, one final question. When is the auction? What is the date of the auction? Have you got that to hand?
I think we need to give more time than we did last year to teams between the auction and the actual tournament, David. So if the actual tournament is going to happen in and around the same window as last year, as this year, if I was a team owner, I would very much like the auction to happen towards the end of the year, beginning of next year. Give me 5 months to get my stuff together. I think that would be a solid thing. The only problem with that is that the men and women, wherever, June 7th is the last, I think Bordeaux is the last HSBC Sevens championship game. Injuries, it's part and parcel. You just have to take a gamble on that. But otherwise, the sooner the better for the auction is, in my opinion. I'm just speaking personally. I haven't spoken to the governing council. None of us have decided with the team owners. All of that will be decided later on this month. But I would like to do it earlier than we did last year for sure. There's nothing to be lost by giving team owners more time and the coaches more time to actually get into conversations with players. I do want to say one thing before we sign off, David. I said this to the Rugby India team, the support staff, not the staff, when we started. I said, just because we're not a world-class rugby team today, which we will be very soon, it doesn't mean we can't have world-class processes. So we have to start there. So the processes, the RPL, of course, is world-class, but many things within Rugby India, including our teams, are not the best in the world. But that doesn't mean that the processes we follow can't be the best. And if you do that, you do things the right way, the correct way, with uncompromise, and one day you'll get there. When that is, whether I'm 6 foot under or my ashes are being scattered in the Ganges, I don't know. But I think our responsibility is to put the sport on a trajectory that hopefully nobody will be able to mess with in the future.
Well, I look forward to sitting with you at the 2032 Olympics in Brisbane as we watch the Indian team run out onto the opening day at Brisbane 2032. That will be...
From your lips to God's ears.
Well, I tell you, if, again, best ever... The vision's clear, exactly as you know it. The vision's clear. You know what you got to do. You come back to today. What have I got to get done today to the best of my ability? Where am I tomorrow? Okay, look up every so often. That's where we're going. Back to work, and away you go. Clearly you are applying, the central theory and practice of performance and high performance. And I'm sure that it will accelerate. And I'm sure that if the more opportunity that you have to play these tournaments over time, it will be that silver bullet. It will be that accelerant, and then all of a sudden you will find that process will take place. But again, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, and I do know that the Rugby Unity audience all over the world will be fascinated with the story of Indian rugby and the story of the Premier League, and we look forward to continuing to support that. And to you, the audience, what a great conversation with a great rugby man doing an enormous job in a massive country. Just thinking about what we understand there, 1.45 billion people, the numbers of states that are playing the game and understanding that it's not a game for the upper class, it's a game for the working class. So much knowledge, so much information, so much learning for us all about our great game. And as we do sit here at Rugby Unity thinking about how do we help secure the future prosperity of the rugby union around the world, well, we could do worse than to continue to help and support Rahul Bose and his team there at Rugby India. What a great rugby story, and delighted that he was able to share that with us today. Now, to you, the audience, thank you for coming back once again. Please keep the comments, the questions, and the subscriptions coming. It's been a fantastic year for us here at Rugby Unity, and have been absolutely delighted with that support that we've had from all over the world. So if you do have time to subscribe, please like, comment, engage with us in any way, social media, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Please engage with us. And we will continue to produce the content that we have over the last 6 months, and we'll continue to do it for a long time into the future, please. But for the moment, please, everyone, be kind to each other. My name is David Pembroke, and it's bye for now.